Welcome to Mental Health News Radio, the original podcast of the Mental Health News Radio Network. I'm your host, Kristin Walker. I have been hosting this show for over 15 years, and over time, it's evolved from traditional interviews into something I like a lot better, real, free-flowing conversations. On this network and on my own shows, we have multiple hosts and voices across mental health, trauma, and addiction recovery, each bringing their own lived experience and expertise. Some of our most listened to conversations right now center around neurodivergence, including my own late diagnosis of autism and ADHD, along with many other topics that shape how we understand mental health today. I'm also a writer and mental health advocate, which I talk about here and across the network. I'm really glad you're here. Let's get into the conversations. Hey everyone, Kristin Walker here, and I am with my good friend who is also a podcaster on the network. Her name is Aline Duriaud, and I'm so glad that you're on the show.
Me too. It's very exciting.
And
I really appreciate that you asked me. Oh, we're cutting over each other. We're gonna talk.
That's
I'm
okay.
Really excited. Thank you.
That's very neurodivergent conversation, right?
It seems that way. That's what I'm learning with the ADHD in particular. And I've got friends who are ADHD, and there seems to be this element from what I can gather from myself and with other people that I know, where it's this like, I'm so excited, I've got to just share this with you. And oh my gosh, so.
Exactly. It's the best. I was just talking with my friend Aspen, who made this gorgeous piece. And so we're walking and he goes, but I feel more normal than I've ever felt. And I said, honey, that's because you're hanging out with all of us. So
yes, that makes sense. Well, it's been a real process. I'm at the beginning in the sense that I was fairly recently diagnosed officially, and I'm in almost my mid-50s now. And it seems quite, certainly in the UK, quite a common thing for women in particular to get diagnosed a bit later. I've got people I know, and I've been dealing with various diagnosed mental health, in quotes, issues since I was much younger. But I think the thing that really I found with this is that there was almost like a bit of a grief process. It was like, oh gosh, without even realizing, it's so baked in how I've been trying to manage myself and make myself okay. I'm doing a quotation marks because I know this is audio, and it's quite.
Oh no, we're on video, girl.
Oh, we're on
video
okay.
too. So you can get up and go, woo! However.
Okay. Well, that's another thing with the moving around, because I never realized, without even realizing how much I was like trying to keep, and I actually am very moving back and forth. And then obviously the movement and my training and fitness helps with that. So it's wonderful to have different perspectives on it, and a hopeful perspective, because it's easy, like even on Instagram, there's a lot of stuff, but it's easy to start going, oh God, and what I've been doing. But there's actually a lot of hope. So that's the good thing.
I went through the whole, and you probably heard, because I know you listen to some of my shows, but went through that whole thing of, oh my gosh, I am disabled and I just have been masking my incompetence my whole life. And I'm glad that I went down that rabbit hole. I'm glad that I felt all the ways that could be true and wore the hat of that. And then at the end of that, I went, no, I'm not masking my incompetence. I was masking my competence. This is a freaking superpower, and I'm very happy to have it. And I'm glad that I know. I'm just glad that I know. And then as soon as I went down that road, like I just pivoted and went over to the positive side of everything.
Yes.
Suddenly friends that could stay because they're wired like I am, and we sit with each other and we go, we're doing things like normal people do, normal, right? But that's what it feels like. We never could access that. How come they can just go to dinner and hang out and have a great time, and there's no ruptures and there's no this and there's no, well, guess what? We can now, because we're around each other. Not that we can't around other people, but there's something about the symbiosis of all of us being together where it's like, oh, we all ring the same bell. Different flavors, but the basic bell is the same. And so around each other, this feels like the norm. Moving around, talking, getting all excited, and that's how our operation.
Definitely. It's been, the interesting thing is that what I'm realizing is that the people I've always been drawn to have been neurodivergent. I didn't realize it. It's like this instant thing where, without even realizing it, there's, as you say, like it's almost like at the nervous system level and sync. So no, it's good. And it's actually certainly from the point of view of movement and fitness, there are so many people in the field that I'm in who certainly have got ADHD. I don't know about, I'm sure there are people who've got autism also, but I know so many people I work with who've said to me either, well, I've got ADHD, or, oh, well, I know for sure that I'm on that, in that milieu thing. So there are loads of us around.
And I love the way you say autism. I'm going to say it like that. Autism.
How do you say it? How do you say it?
Autism. It's so unattractive with the American accent.
American and the English.
Autism. Oh, I like it. I don't even know if I could say it. But anyway, yes. It's changed my whole style of how I do my shows, everything, because I was very buttoned up, and I still can be like, okay, we need to focus on a show, but just the ability to get excited and talk more, because I was always made sure I only talked 15% of the time. That, of course, if I was really excited about a topic, it was more. But anyway, let's talk about the fitness piece, because something I realize is I could not stick with any routine for fitness or routine for anything until I got this diagnosis. And then I started creating my own routines, and suddenly now I can follow a routine and follow it for a year.
Oh, that's amazing. So let me ask you this before I start talking about my own journey with the fitness. What does that look like for you? I'd be really interested to know.
It started out with me just because I live in the Appalachian Mountains. So it just started with me walking, hiking 2-3 hours a day while I processed that life review that we seem to go through after diagnosis. We're like, oh my God, I need to go back to as early as I can remember and look at my life through this new lens. So I did that hiking, and I orated. I had a recorder or my phone, and I would record my thoughts and then analyze those later. And I would also write essays by orating. That's how I get all my stuff on TikTok and whatever. So it was the hiking. And then my friend Aspen came here and he was like, let's join the gym. And I joined, and I said, oh, please, I'm not going to a gym, whatever. And then I went, and now I'm swimming every day, lap after lap. And I do the weights and the water and the resistance. And I do it every day. I've even got my 78-year-old mother who has dementia doing it with me.
Wonderful. So great. And I love the way that you've done the walking, and then also there's a processing as part of that.
Yes.
And then you're also getting content and you're processing and reflecting. I really love that combination. That's fabulous.
I want to work with you. And once we get the studio done, I want to work with you on the weightlifting part, because that need, I want you to talk about like how important it is, especially for women, and especially for women that are essentially carrying two different nervous systems in the same body, how important it is for us to ground, and how much weight training really forces you to be connected to the ground.
Yes. And I'm happy to talk about that because I can talk about the strength training and my experience with it, particularly through the whole neurodivergent lens, and also just in terms of mental health, my own mental health. But also I'm still lifting weights because that's a kind of core part of what I do. But I've moved into something slightly different, which is the Thai boxing, which is actually also really helping me in an unexpected way. So I'm happy to talk about the fitness, how I got into it, and share my experience, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Do it.
Just go. I talk a lot, so you
so do I, honey. We're in good company.
We're in good company. Okay. All right. So, well, let me just say this. So I will start by saying I am a certified fitness coach. It was a career change at, I think, around 48 years old. And since I qualified, I've also qualified as a menopause coach, and I've qualified as a mobility specialist coach. And I'll go into a bit more about that. But just to go back, so basically I've been training since I was really young. And when I was younger, like many women, I had a lot of issues with eating disorders. So it was always a bit fraught, my relationship with exercise. It was always very compulsive and very punishing. At the same time, I've reflected since I started doing this professionally, and actually it's not black and white. I really found a space with movement. I did lots of different things. I did yoga. I moved to America to do an MA in my 20s, and I joined the Y. And so it's always been a constant through my life. But the reason that I switched career, as it were, is that in my late 40s, I was actually training to be a counselor. And I was in a relationship that ended up being a coercive control relationship, which I, thank goodness, managed to get out of. And at the same, that's a whole other story. But at the time also, my mother had just been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and I had a very fraught relationship with my mother. She was a narcissist, I believe. Bless her, she had her own stuff going on. So I was just like, this is going to be way too much for me to do this counseling, and because I'm really going to have to go into this deep self-reflection, and I'm really in fight or flight mode. So I dropped out, and I just randomly thought, right, I'm going to get into the gym. I know that that's always been a safe space for me. And I remember saying to myself, I just joined my local gym, look, because I've had this long history with exercising to, in quotes, be skinny, and it's been really self-punishing, just don't want to do that. I want to feel strong. I don't want to do it for that reason. I want to look good, but that's not going to carry me. So I started going in, and although I've done lots of different training, I've never particularly been a weightlifter. So I went into my local gym, and I literally just started pushing the weights around, and I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I like being here. And I hired a trainer just for 5 sessions, a woman, and she had done bodybuilding shows, and I just found it really inspiring. I thought, and at that time I thought, God, there's no way I could ever do that. She was much younger than me, but I was like, she gave me a little bit of help. And then, because I love learning, and again, I don't know whether this is a neurodivergent thing specifically, but I find that it almost really relaxes me to be learning something, to be learning a system.
We got to do something with all that's going on up here. We really have to put it somewhere. Otherwise, it can be dangerous.
Yes, it can be really destructive. And for me, I can make very impulsive decisions that can really be problematic for me. So learning's a great ally of mine. So on that basis, and this is before I knew that I was neurodivergent, I thought, I'll just sign up for a qualification course to become a personal trainer. It's not that challenging academically. And even if I don't use it professionally, I can just use it for my own information. And it actually really helped me during that time, because there was a lot going on in my personal life. It just gave me that focus, to be learning something online, to have a goal. Okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to finish this. And then once I passed it, again, without too many expectations, I just applied for different roles in gyms in London, and I got hired. And it was a really new adventure for me, because most people, at least in the gym where I was, it was busy, like one of those 24-hour gyms. Most of the people were in their 20s. So it was like I'm with kids, and I'm learning something from the ground up, and I don't really know what I'm doing, and I'm on the gym floor. But it was a really good thing to do. It was good for me at that time, and it was a real confidence booster that I was learning something new, and I got some clients. And it was the thing that was quite good about it for me, was that because I was thrown into this busy environment, you get all types of people, all bodies, all types of people. It's a very general population. So it just gave me that sense of like, hey, that's how I learn about, well, this approach might work with this person. It sounds really obvious, but
no, again, a lot of art with the amount of brain juice that goes through our heads, and how much we code switched in order to figure out how to live and survive in the world that we did not feel we felt like it was hostile territory all the time. And then you get the diagnosis, and you're like, okay, now I know what's going on with my wiring, and now the world does not have to be so hostile anymore, right?
Exactly.
You build up your physical strength, and so I don't have to be hostile in my body anymore either. Right?
Exactly. And one of the things, this has come a bit later, but one of the things I've noticed, I don't know, well, it sounds like you have from what you're saying, is that I've started to realize how much all my life I've been apologizing for not being comfortable in certain spaces, for being overstimulated, and I, without even realizing it, I was always responding or reacting to this inner narrative of, oh, Aline, come on, you should just be able to cope with this. What's wrong with you? And that's really exhausting. And to actually say, this is not the right environment for me, and that's okay. That's been revolutionary for me. And there's almost a part of me going, okay, like, is it actually okay to do this? It's huge for me.
I always feel like the undiagnosed neurodivergent is literally a life of Sisyphus pushing a rock up a hill, and the rock falls down, and you just keep going. And then every time it goes down, that's the burnout coming, right? That we think depression, and sometimes it is, that we think is, oh, we're lazy, or we can't cope, or there's something wrong with us. And then you figure this out and you go, oh, what? I actually have agency here. I don't have to push this rock up a freaking hill ever again. I can now go over here and be around these people, be around everybody, of course, and be more comfortable being around everybody, right? Because you're no longer operating in this deficit model because you didn't know what was going on. Then you come out of the, oh, I'm disabled part. And then you go into, oh, wait a minute, how does this work for me? Ooh, how exciting. And suddenly life is like a painting. You're painting it. You have agency. It's your experience. If I want to go be a bodybuilder and go on stage and do all the cool stuff that you've been doing,
I can do that.
Celebrate it because you have yourself. You're like, your whole self is like, I'm here.
Absolutely. And like I say, for me, it's been almost this, and it's ongoing for me. It's an ongoing process for me where I almost have these pinch me moments where I go, actually, I don't have to do that. I actually don't have to. No, I don't. So that's huge. And I think I like what you said about the painting, Kristin, because for me, I know it's not black and white, and I do still, actually recently I've been going through a period of, I say depression, it is depression, but it's not like I've had like severe clinical depression. It's not like that at all. It's just like, what's my purpose? It's not to minimize depression whatsoever, but I can see the difference that actually it is, okay, you're feeling it in your body, you some of those thoughts are there, but it is actually about just, it's almost like just recalibrating. And this process,
you know why? Because we are tuning forks.
Yes.
You get around another tuning fork and you're like, oh, okay, this is what it feels like to be amplified by something positive. Whereas when we get around people that are filled with a lot of narcissistic distortion, still, that is a ring that does not jive with our narcissy at all. And they tend to borrow from us because we have so much energy and so much light to spread around, and so much, and we can manufacture it internally ourselves on our own. We don't have to take it from other people.
Absolutely.
That's on, hopefully they get to a point where they realize if you can put in the work on self, you can generate that for yourself. You don't have to suck it out of other people and leave them feeling depleted. We get around other and we're like, oh, to me, it's like Pokemon or Pac-Man. You're just going along. And when we're together, we're like, bing, and we fill each other up.
You call it the 3D to the 4D. It's like, oh, absolutely. Now, what I do want to share with you, because I'm going to be mindful how I share, because I'm not going to call anyone out or anything like that. But I think it's an experience that I've gone through, that I think I've gone through it and processed it to the degree that I can share about. But I think it's also helpful, especially for anyone who is neurodivergent and for anyone who is on social media, making contacts on social media. So I was at this gym, and again, without going into loads of detail, a lot suddenly happened in my personal life. I got out of this relationship, which was a lot. Anyone who's been in that relationship will know. And then it was like everything came at once. I had a family member who was very ill, life-threatening illness. I was dealing with my mother's estate. There was a period where I had nowhere to live. So it was just like, boom, everything at once. And I hired a coach online, and myself, I'm a coach. I'm a huge proponent of working with a coach for fitness or for anything else. And so I reached out to someone who's very well known in the UK, and actually initially it was to do business coaching, because I realized some of it was my neurodiversity, that I was struggling to communicate and to sell myself in a way that didn't feel like and then all the other stuff that was going on. So I hired this woman and I worked with her for 2 years. And what I will say is that there were a lot of positives in that. I then also hired her to help me to coach me for a bodybuilding show. And I don't regret the experience. I'm really grateful I did it. There were also some cons to it, which I'll share about just from my experience. But what ended up happening with that woman, and I actually complained to her certifying board, because when I left that relationship, I realized that she had been quite unethical in certain ways. What I realized is that I was in quite a vulnerable position at that time. All of this was happening at once. I felt quite isolated. I felt
That's
quite
when
vulnerable.
those relationships come in, right? When
yes.
you're
And it
vulnerable.
Yes. And it was this shiny object And it was this person going, yes, you're special. I'm going to get you where you want to go. We are just going to do this together. I've got your back. And there was a lot, as I say, where she was very good. She's very talented. I believe also that she was quite predatory. And one of the things I've learned, particularly with the ADHD, is that it's a real asset as to how fast my brain processes stuff. But sometimes I can get so excited. And if someone else, for whatever reason, it may not be malevolent, it may not be calculated, but is just going, yes, come on, come on. I find
pressure.
Yes, it's very important. I have to literally, it's like sitting on my hands sometimes to just take a step back. And she was like, come on. And she would all that stuff, like all the hustling stuff, like, oh, just sign up for this extra weekend with me, all that stuff. So it just got to the point where on the one hand, I was like, wow, I'm doing this bodybuilding show. And actually it's in some ways really helping my neurodivergence and it's giving me structure. But I was also like, really don't feel right in this relationship. I feel like I'm constantly, there's no room for me to be me. And so I ended up ending the relationship. And that was difficult because it was when I left the relationship, I thought, wow, I've done this again, bringing it back to me in a work relationship. I've gotten into this situation where I'm being predated on. And that was a learning experience. And I think the learning experience to me from that was years ago when I was looking at narcissism and being a victim of narcissistic abuse. Not that there's anything wrong with this and I needed to do this at that stage, but I would go into this like frenzy of like, oh, these narcissists, these psychopaths, and just
for 10 years.
Frenzy. Yes, and I needed to do that.
Of course.
At that time. And I think what helped me is that I was able to be a little less black and white and go, actually, this is really crushing. And also, and I remember speaking to you, Bruce, and you really helped me because one of the things you said to me is, look, this is all learning. It's all data. We get into these situations wired to be drawn to people who operate like that. What can I learn? And also, I've still learned stuff from her, and I've still got my own practice. And that I think really helped me not to just take a nosedive.
He started looking at it like, okay, well, these are just echoes. I know what these relationships are, but something else needed to be healed. And so I needed another one of those to come in so that I could then look at it from this new lens of knowing about the neurodivergence and going, okay, all right, well, I could be more, because I was going through that unmasking process of my own, which gets as well, because people with high narcissism are also masking, right? So
yes,
it's weird, like, ooh, what's going on? And then you get in another one of these relationships, but you don't go as deep. It doesn't get as far. It doesn't push you into a full burnout with depression, maybe just a little bit. And you realize, oh, okay, I don't have to be panicked. I don't have to be scared. I know how I'm wired now. I'm letting down my own mask, and I needed to see this unmasked. So it really helped me to not shame myself into oblivion for, oh, you're doing it again. Can't you learn, Kristin? I just got rid of all that negative self-talk around it. And when I'm so glad that this new thing happened and I got out of it more quickly and I didn't have to demonize someone and make them a villain. I just said, you do you, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do me. Because in my world, 2 + 2 = 4. But if you want 2 + 2 = 17, go on with your bad self, right on out of my life.
Yes, I think that's a wonderful way to look at it. I really do, because I think in that space, there's more possibility. There's more possibility because of the other thing, and this is anecdotal, right? You tell me if you experience this, but one of the things I've found out anecdotally from people I know who are neurodivergent, and I have this too, is this very strong, pronounced sense of injustice.
Oh,
and
justice,
well, given what you do, you must have it.
Oh my God, that's so us.
And that is a real asset. I think that's a wonderful thing. Now, for me, where it can become a problem is I go into this very self-righteous, hyper-focused mode where I can really just lose track and lose focus, and I can just be absolutely focused on, I'm going to take you down, all that stuff. And it's like, that's not helpful for me.
Right. But what it does too, we're talking in the beginning of the show about we need to do something with this brain of ours, our wiring. We have to put it somewhere. So exercise, all kinds of things. And
yes.
And when we get around someone who is a puzzle of narcissism, we're like, oh my gosh, we got to get the Rubik's Cube all configured.
Yes.
And they don't want you to do that.
No. And what was so interesting, I won't talk about this specific person, but I'll talk about the dynamic in hindsight that was really interesting. It was almost as if we were both trying to do that to each other. I think
They
I'm
are
not a doctor.
trying to do that.
They are, right? I'm not a doctor, obviously, but I think that she was probably, well, if she's a narcissist, she's neurodivergent anyway. But I think
Right.
she had, it's interesting because I remember saying to her, I've been diagnosed with ADHD. And the reason I told her is because she was coaching me, and it was important for her because she was doing my nutrition as a coach to be aware of the medication I'm on. And I told her, and she said, oh, there's no such thing as ADHD. And I remember doing this big laughing emoji that she sent me. And I was like, what?
Like, you make it so, you're the expert.
Exactly. But what was really interesting is it was like there was this mutual dance of us trying to figure each other out. And I think the thing that I needed to do, there was a point where I was like, I'm stepping out of the circus ring because this is just really not helping me, and actually it's depleting me and it's making me unwell. So that was a learning experience for me, most definitely.
Too, I also think that when we don't know what the heck's going on with us, and we just don't, because we don't know yet what the wiring is. I had a lot of my own issues around, I wanted them to know that I know what you are. I know what you're doing. I know the game you're playing. So my own ego was invested in taking that down and ripping their mask off and exposure and blah, as we know from many shows that I've done. And I'm glad that I did that, because I did not do that until my 40s. And then in my mid 40s, I was like, no one is going to do it. I had like my revenge years, even though they were very had those years where I did that. And then I got to the point where I went, well, I don't really care if they believe that 2 + 2 = 17. Like, who cares? Go ahead. It's easy to get out of the relationship by just being like, you need to think that you've won something. My God, go ahead, leave and think you've won. I no longer needed to like prove that they hadn't.
Yes, I get that. And that's what, Kristin, I really get the thing of like finding my voice. And I think for me, it's been important to go through a phase of like, no, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to expose this, because I was so shut down. So I think it is important when I really validate that. I had that with the man I was involved with previously, where it was actually a therapist who pointed out to me very gently over time, like, have you heard of coercive control? And one of the things she said to me that I thought was really interesting, that stuck with me, because I would go in there and like, I'm really confused. I'm so confused. And is it me? I don't know what's going on. And she started saying that confusion on an ongoing basis usually is a sign that something's
not
off.
Right. A rotten egg is somewhere.
Exactly. And but I was getting to was that when I left that relationship, I had this whole period where I was just tormenting myself. Why can't he see what he did? And then it just got to the point where I was like, there's not going to be any closure. This is not someone who's in any position to make any acknowledgement or take responsibility. And even if he did say it, I don't know that I'd believe him. And that's just because I don't know. And that once I was able to get to that point, it's not excusing what went on, but it was like, well, all I can really do is look at what got me into that. What are the triggers and what's going on for me? And work on that.
I think I've interviewed so many people. Sandra Brown was one of them, and she talked a lot about, she wrote, I think, The Women Who Love, or The Psychopath Next Door. And I'll edit this if that isn't correct. Sorry, Sandra. But anyway, she had changed her whole practice. She worked with people who had personality disorders, and that was the diagnosis at the time. Now there's a wider perception around even the whole narcissism diagnosis, right? And we're having problems now with people that are jumping on the autism bandwagon saying, oh, don't be upset. You can't be upset with me because I'm autistic. I'm not a narcissist. And it's like, what? You can actually be both.
Yes, absolutely. And I will absolutely. And I will also share, and this is in the spirit of giving anyone who might have the same diagnosis a bit of hope. My first real entry into the mental health system was being diagnosed with, well, it's now called emotionally unstable personality disorder in the UK, but BPD borderline.
That's
borderline.
being phased right on out because they know it comes from trauma. And you are the one who sent me that wonderful a couple of guests that I interviewed about this,
yes,
and that the diagnosis
yes,
really
yes.
just doesn't really cover the mark anymore. It's such a stigmatizing one.
It's very stigmatized. What I will say, since the last time we spoke about a couple of things, I've had loads of therapy over the years. All of it, 65% of it's been helpful in different ways. But I had the opportunity last year to go through a full DBT program, and which is not just for people with the BPD diagnosis. And there were people who didn't have that in the group that I did, and it really helped me. And it's an ongoing thing. It's not a miracle cure. But one of the things when I was being assessed for ADHD that they told me is that, well, a lot of people are misdiagnosed with BPD who are on the spectrum and have ADHD.
Exactly.
So the guy that I chose in London is a specialist in personality disorders and neurodiversity. And as I suspected, he went through a 2-hour interview and he was like, nope, you've got a personality disorder, which really made me laugh. But what I want to say about it is that that aspect of my recovery has really changed. I don't feel, I'm not saying that I don't still have the inner stuff around those characteristics of the personality disorder, but my ability to regulate with therapy, with a lot of work, don't get me wrong.
That's the thing that's so interesting about you, is that you would tell me these things, but you're like actively going to therapy and you're actively working on yourself.
Yes.
Those are not traits that typically show up with a personality disorder.
Yes, I hear you. Well, I'm very lucky that I've had the willingness. Because I think when I first really had it, like the real rock bottom crisis about 15 years ago, it was like I was 39, and I think it was that moment of, look, if you want to exist in this world, you're going to have to, no one's going to do it for you.
Right.
And it was just that. I know it sounds really obvious, but it really was that thing of like, you're going to have to do this. You can choose not to if you want, but let's look at the prognosis if you don't. And glad that I've had the willingness to do it, but the DBT really helped. And also I think now I feel that I have enough self-compassion to say that I can have narcissistic traits, whether it's exactly. And I think, and I will share this just in case there's anyone listening who deals with BPD, is that one of the things that I found I have to be quite careful of is that when I'm really not feeling good about myself and I'm having these really self-critical thoughts, and I've got tools at this point to deal with those, but I can start going into this place of like, am I a narcissist? Am I a psychopath? And it's just not helpful. And it's like, I'm not, but we're all on a spectrum.
Exactly. And saying that disqualifies you from those.
Exactly. But it's like you were saying about, hey, if you want to live in a world where 2 + 2 = 17, you do that. I think that's a really empowering way to go about it, because then I'm not demonizing. It's not accepting. It's not putting myself in danger, but it's also like, you're over there, I'm over here.
Right, exactly. And I think what happens to us, because we're just we operate under, we don't know who we are, we don't know what's going on with us, and we operate under incoming all the time. Every person we meet, what is the angle? What is it? Because we're half there too, right? Then we discover this thing, and then we start to see the whole spectrum of everything.
Yes.
Sometimes even in bits, including with ourselves, and so much self-acceptance that when people would come in that had high narcissistic traits, I wasn't scared. I wasn't going incoming. Because I had myself online again, and I am freaking powerful. You are freaking powerful. We are so powerful that we lived years not even knowing how our whole operating system operated, and yet we stayed alive. We got as far as we did. We figured it out, code switching, and we have these skills to do that stuff. And so you just go, oh, well, wait a minute. If I was this broken, trauma-filled person, how would I have survived all of that?
Exactly.
Realizing, oh my God, I'm amazing that I've been able to navigate as far and as long as I have without knowing all of this important stuff.
Absolutely. How incredibly creative. How creative.
God, yes.
Absolutely. And I think it needs to be said, because it's easy to forget that. And I know for me, when I'm having my moments, can forget it. And one of the things with the DBT therapy that I found really helpful, because I identified that I would go into these loops where I'd start, like, I suppose everyone's got their own narrative, right? And my loop is, I can't cope, it's too much, and the overwhelm. And then now I'm learning with the AuDHD about the burnout. And it would just be like, it's all over. And one thing that's really helped me is, okay, let's check the facts. Let's check the facts. And it's a bit clinical, but it's like, if I check the facts of, well, I've been in situations that objectively, they may not have felt worse, but they were objectively more challenging, and I got through them, found a way to get through it. So that I found can be very helpful. It's just really, let's look at the brass tacks, let's look at the facts.
I love saying look at the data, because for me, what I buried was the autism, because ADHD is super fun at every party. Like,
yes,
I could do a million podcasts burning myself out and running on ADHD. And women, it's like, oh, well, then you're charming and you're sparkling and you're fun and you're this and that with that online. But what I buried was the autism piece, because you're not allowed to be extremely smart. You're not allowed to be into math and science and all these other things that require the autism to, ooh, that's interesting. So a lot of us bury that first, because ADHD makes you acceptable. But once you those both online together and learn how to regulate that, and I know dialectical behavioral therapy, there's a lot of stigma around it, but it's really good in many ways for an adult person's ADHD mind, because I think what it does is it gives you the pause.
It gives you the pause. And it's funny, because when I was doing it, and obviously there are loads of different types of therapy, different things work for different people. And like I said, I've had loads of different therapy interventions. They've all been really.
They've all done their thing.
They've all done their thing. But I think the thing with the DBT, I remember doing it and thinking, God, this is so basic. These worksheets and
pick up rock, put it on table, pick up pencil, put it over. It is, so, but it's monotonous.
Something about it really helps. It really helps. And I think the thing for me, again, as obvious as it sounds, is that I was like, oh, okay, regulating myself doesn't mean I feel happy all the time. I have my emotions. So even stuff like that, I was like, God, I'm trying to find myself. It's like putting the pieces of myself together in a way that works for me, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. I think for me, going through the process of that years long excavation of let's go back as far as I can and look at things through this new data point that I have, which is the neurodivergence piece. Like, oh, wow, this is awesome. What the heck does this mean? There's that. And what it did was I was able to clear out so much trauma, and all the therapy in the world was not going to get me where I needed to be, because I was still compressing myself. So there was not a place that it could really reach me to actually become something like exercise. I couldn't stick with anything. I could not really stick with it. And then this piece came on, and suddenly, all that therapy, it is amazing. All the therapy that I've ever had since the age of 12, I was able to access it fully once I got diagnosed and go, and blow through stuff like a ninja. Oh, okay, right. I've been studying this forever. Now I know it. I have the ability to pause and reflect and look around at everything. And now, like, remember that movie Ultraviolet with Mila Jovovich, where
I haven't seen it.
Oh God, it's such a great movie. She's able to like pull it, say, oh, I want to have a throwing star come out of my arm, or I want to have a gun that shows up out of my promoting violence, but that's part of the movie. And for me, that's what it felt like. Oh, okay, wait, I learned that technique with that one therapist I saw however ago. And now I have the ability to freaking use it.
Oh, I get that. I really do get hearing that, because I'm starting to have glimpses of that, because I know exactly what it means. It's like a balloon starting to.
Here's my rucksack. Here's the thing I needed that I learned 10 years ago that I couldn't stick with because I didn't have enough room inside myself yet.
The other thing, Kristin, the whole autism thing is very new to me. So I'm just starting to explore that and sort of
amazing
in my own time, right? One of the things, so there's the person who, well, she gave me a provisional diagnosis. She said, look, I'm 90% sure she's a psychiatrist, but if you want to get it on paper, go ahead. And I thought, no, I don't need to do that. I know she's telling, I know. But one of the things she said, which is obvious, but it was still quite validating. She said, look, as girls are conditioned to mask much more to be socially acceptable. And I think one of the things that I'm finding, it's that thing of, like, as you said, around certain kinds of intelligence or self-expression, it's that conditioning that, not that it's true, but I'll be rejected if I'm like this, or it's quite deep, all that stuff. It's quite deep. So I know what you mean about that, potentially knowing that and then really experiencing it and going, this is me, being that starting point. It's like, all this other stuff which it's been difficult to actually fully use is now going to start making sense in a different way.
It's like this. Like, I was in karate and gymnastics and horseback riding when I was a little kid, and I did it enough to where it just became part of my, autonomic processing. So I've been on a horse when somebody opens a gate and the horse's name is Buck. Hello, do not let this horse out. And it starts bucking me across the pasture. It sees the open gate and it is going for the forest at a full clip. And I'm like, I'm going to die, right? Because I'm on bareback on this thing. Decided before it got to the gate, this is before diagnosis, this is in my 20s, but this is the point of this. I was on this horse and I can see, because of course we are totally like, we see every danger point that is, I'm going to hit this tree. I'm going to do this. Okay. I'm very calm. I'm on the horse. What the hell am I going to do? It gets to the gate and I leapt off the horse. And this is in early 30s. I leapt off the horse and I tumbled like a gymnast and karate tumbling. And then I stood up like this and I had some bruises or whatever, but my body remembered karate tumbling because I did it so often. And now that I'm diagnosed, it's like, oh, okay, now those things of therapy are like that thing where I just tumbled. I totally did all that. Got it. Now totally I know how to use it properly.
And it's and I think what I will say about that is I'm grateful that for all the years where I was just trudging away.
Yes.
Doing therapy and doing whatever I could and thinking, is this really working? Because I just
because I don't feel good. I really shouldn't. I feel joy.
Awful. Exactly. And it was like, well, I guess quite honestly, there were years where I was like, well, I guess I'm alive. I'm not killing myself in various ways. I've got a pulse. I guess that's the best I can hope for. I just got to keep doing this. I'll keep doing it. But it does get to a point. It's such a reassuring to be like, oh my God, actually now it's starting to actually pay off.
Yes.
So it's like, don't give up before the miracle happens.
It's the ultimate late bloomer story, right?
Yes, most definitely. And
I wish I would have felt this good about myself. I wish I knew. I talked about this with a friend, not to get into, I'm not trying to be vain here, but we are talking, this is about fitness and stuff, but I coped in so many ways. I coped by making myself very large physically because I could not handle anyone looking at me and my father and the stuff he would do to me and whatever. To me, any beauty was like, do not get attention paid to you because bad things happen.
Yes.
And after this diagnosis, I'm like, what? I was really, I could not even see what I looked like on the outside. I could not see any really thing about who I am. And I hid from it because it was dangerous. When I wasn't fully present, it was dangerous.
Yes.
Now that I'm
not fully present.
Yes. And now, and so people would come in and they want things, and men wanted things from me and they were attracted to me, and I didn't understand why they behave. I was like, why are you walking into a wall because you're walking into a room I'm in? That is weird. What is happening? And then I get diagnosed and I go, oh my God, I get to go back to that pretty little girl and go, well, you are pretty. You are okay. You tried really hard, and now you get to embody the beauty of yourself inwardly and outwardly.
Absolutely. And you're glowing. You really are glowing. It shows.
Well, it's the lighting, but anyway.
Get it, Kristin, because, and I'll put it in my own language, what you're saying resonates, because recently I've been, so going back to the fitness, and it relates to this conversation. So I've mainly worked on gym floors, and the place where I work at the moment, it's a great gym in London and it's really a great gym. But what I've started to realize is that, so when I started working, I was like, okay, I have to just put myself out there on the floor, and I did that. And then I was diagnosed with ADHD while I was working there and I did the show. And then after the show, it wasn't just mentally and emotionally with the coach, it was also just physically, because it is very grueling physically. And I had I won't call it a crash, but it was burnout. I had a burnout, and because I was just working.
Right.
And over the last 6 months, I've come to a place where I've just decided this is too overstimulating an environment for me, and I don't need to apologize for that.
Exactly.
I don't need to apologize. And because I was going in and there was a part of me going, oh, this is really weird and everyone else can do this. And it's just been a process of me going, actually, if I'm honest with myself, and it's not bad. It's not that it's bad. It's just that it's not right for me. This environment is not right for me. And also, I'm very community oriented. That is just part of my value system, where I have to be very careful as the boundaries, because I can burn myself out because I'm a helper. You know, I'm a helper. I'm naturally, and I'm okay with that, but I can burn myself out. And I'm now, in fact, I had a session with this other lovely business coach. This is someone completely different. And what I love about her is that she's very much, don't overwhelm yourself, do a few things a month. We're not going all out. We're not doing that. But I've decided that what I'm going to move towards over time is building up a little community space in my area. And because I was in this thing, and again, this is where I think it's really empowering to be able to say it's not black and white, it's not a right or wrong, but I was really trying to emulate that past coach and her suggestions and do that. I'm on the floor, let's do some sales talk with you. And I was just like, this just isn't me. I want it to be me, but it isn't me.
Right.
And the more I fight that, the more burnt out I'm going to get. And there's a grief process around that too, by the way, but it's the portal to something much more rewarding.
What I love too is when you were showing the Instagram where you were doing the dancing with the pole and stuff like that.
Yes, that was amazing. That was amazing.
We're almost done, but let's talk about that, because women, we get shamed if we do, we get shamed if we don't. And I'm so proud of you that you picked something that was empowering for you to do, that I don't think women really understand how doing that can be so empowering, especially when you're on the spectrum. So can you talk about
Yes, absolutely. And I'll talk also briefly about the boxing, because it fits in with this. A couple of things. When I did the bodybuilding show that I did, I specifically chose a federation. So in the UK, probably the same in the US, there were these different federations. And I'm an amateur. I'm not a pro, and I wasn't going to be pro. And one of the reasons I chose that federation is there was a category called transformation, where women go and share their stories. So it's really more about you before and you after. There is a competitive aspect, but it's more your story. And so the first thing in regards to what you just asked is, I was around women who were sharing about having severe CPTSD, about being in abusive relationships. So that was very empowering. That was the first thing. Women in their 40s, 50s. The other thing too is that it's a strange one. It's quite paradoxical, because when I even thought about it, I thought, God, I'm a feminist, like wearing bikini and heels. But it's like a bit like sculpture, I would say. Yes. And it's also, there were pros and cons to it for me. But what I loved about it is I got to know my own body. And I think that was, at the end of the day, having been so disconnected from my body from such a young age, because I just didn't feel safe. There was something about going, I am getting to know my body, and I'm presenting it on stage the way I want to. And by the way, there were loads of people there who had ADHD. So it's obviously...
Oh, I'm sure.
So it was a surprisingly liberating thing to do. And I will just, if we're coming to the end, I'll just say, although it's very different, I just fell into the Thai boxing. There's a similar aspect to it. And I think it's great for anyone who's neurodivergent.
I want to do that.
Oh, I think you would love it, Kristin, because
tell me what it does. Like,
okay, so I've never been someone who's into combat sports.
Me too.
Ever.
I'm
not. There are people, exactly. There are people who are like, oh, I've been boxing. So I'm the opposite. I'm like,
why would you put your face near something where it can be punched? That doesn't sound like a right thing.
Exactly. So I started doing some local classes, and I'm doing it without any intention of fighting at the moment. And also the age thing, I'm in my 50s, just from a health and safety perspective. But what I found is that It's quite humbling, because especially because I'm quite physically well conditioned, because it really is. I'll give you an example. You've got your stance, you've got your hands. So it's like the whole body's working like a system. So it's like, oh, you've got to kick and your shoulder has to come. And I'm going to go a little bit ADHD now. But the woman who coaches me also has ADHD. So the way that she explains it to me, actually, that's what I meant to say. What I love about it is it's showing me how ADHD and autism can be an asset in terms of finding ways to learn that work for me. And one example I'll give you. She was getting me to do this stance, and I was like, I can't do it. So she was like, right, Aline, and bear in mind she's got ADHD. She's like, right, I want you to imagine you're a kebab and you've got a stick middle of your body, and then you've got, forgive that, you've got big iron testicles hanging down, so those are holding you back, and then you're like, and you make this noise
like Cardi B,
and then you go, and then you're doing this, and then your leg's like a baseball bat. And I was like, that makes perfect sense. There's something about learning and that being really validated, that it's quite complex. And I think also for me, just the physical and the mental, really now I'm getting this aspect of the AuDHD, that how important the physical is to me. I think the other thing just for me personally is I found, this is just my personal experience, the bodybuilding, the training, very isolating, because you're in the gym, you've got your headphones on. This is by definition, although you do drills alone, by definition, you're interacting with another person, by definition. So that for me, it's also a nice way to be interacting in a way that feels okay for me.
Right.
And a lot of the people there also seem to be on the spectrum. I don't know for sure, but I went to a class, and the guy, I was like, bless him, because he was just giving these lots of systems explanations. I was like, okay, we're obviously all on the same wavelength.
I love it. It's like I said, when you get around people that have similar wiring, you forget that there's difference.
Yes.
In many ways, because you're all in the same frequency. Yes. Right. And so you start to forget about difference just long enough to sink into something where you're all in the same river, floating in the same direction.
Yes, correct.
But it's not like you forget that there's difference, because then you run into someone who is very differently wired and you go, oh, right. Yes. Oh, that's what that is. Okay. And you see it more clearly.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. And I think also with the Muay Thai, just I suppose with any combat sport, and I'm a beginner, so I'm just learning. And one of the things I'm posting on my personal profile is I'm like, because that's the other thing, and there's no right or wrong. So I'm certainly not going, this is wrong, this is right. But one of the things that I started to really struggle with on a nervous system level is, okay, I understand Instagram and social media, they're marketing platforms. No one is 100% authentic, whatever that even means. But I was starting to feel like it was like I'm masking. I was becoming more aware of how I've masked with the AuDHD. And I was like, I want to unmask on social media.
Yes. Oh my God.
I don't want to throw myself. I'm not talking about throwing myself to the wolves, but I'm talking about just finding a way that is okay for me. So the Muay Thai posting just on my personal page about what's going on, and even the stuff where the movements aren't that technically good, that is all helpful for me. It's like building a foundation.
Yes.
But I was going to say also, I'll finish on this. I think just having been quite vulnerable at many points in my life and quite open to exploitation, there is a certain just confidence building with combat sports, where even if you're not going for fighting anyone, just punching a bag, or it gives you just that something about that confidence, which has helped me too. So as did the bodybuilding, as did weight strength training.
And so we need to be able to ground in our bodies, because we're so up here and dissociated and whatever, and this physical tired. That's what, for me, swimming. For me, it's the swimming. Of course, I apparently leapt out of my mother's arms at like 3 months old into a pool and just started swimming, and everybody was freaking out trying to get me out of the water because they thought I was going to drown, and I was like 3 months old going like a fish. I just love it. And the freedom of movement with your body, with the water. Oh, I really needed that. That's helped me come home.
I love it. And I say to people that I work with, and this is really what I'm trying to promote with the people I work with, it's very important that you find a form of movement that works for you. And within that, yes, if you have certain goals, if you want to lose fat, or if you're in menopause, then there are certain scientific things that we need to do, and that's where my qualifications and my professional background come in. But aside from that, it's got to work for you. It's got to be something where there can be some play. If it's like super, my experiences, when it's like super rigid all the time, it really becomes quite punishing, and
that
makes sometimes too much.
Punishing stuff for me, like I have to do it all through play because we punished ourselves our whole freaking lives. And so I just am not interested in anything where, oh, that looks like more punishment. I don't want to do that. I'll do hard things, but I can't come at them unless they're play for me now.
Exactly that. There's got to be a playful element.
I know what it is to be a donkey pulling a plow all of the time. That's how I lived my whole life. And now I'm like, no, I'm a unicorn. Okay. I'll pull
I love
it.
I'm a unicorn,
but I'm going to do it as a unicorn.
I love that. I think that's just so empowering. And I think the thing that I love about that, which for me, because I've always had that thing of exactly that, it's like you're a workhorse. You said, you push the boulder.
I have no need. Don't even need to feed me. Don't need to pay attention. I'll just keep on going. Okay, so do you work with anyone on Zoom?
Yes, I do. So I'll tell you just briefly about how I work. So at the moment in London site, I work at a gym called Gymbox, which is in the city. But in terms of how I work online, yes, I do. So I do online coaching, and that is in the area of mobility. So as it suggests, it's strength and also opening up your range of movement. So that could be someone who lifts weights, but maybe they've had an injury, or someone who just wants to spend more time with their kids and they've got a bad back. It's like, really, I describe it as, if you think about stretching and flexibility, is taking an elastic band and stretching it. Mobility is actually reinforcing the material and strengthening it so that you can stretch it and let it come back, and the whole structure stronger, if that makes any sense. That's my message.
And I'm saying you can do that with anyone, anywhere. Everyone can get the benefit of having someone beautiful, creative, amazing, powerful, and with the most gorgeous British accent tell you what the frick to do with your body for a little bit.
Absolutely, I love it. That's a much more attractive way of putting it. And without, like, I'll just finish on this. The thing with coaching is that so as I've learned from my own experience, red flag, be careful of any coach who starts trying to be a therapist. Flag, like big red flag, boop, 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 and giving
or
you
that
advice.
Tries to push you to do things. I took 6 months of one-on-one belly dancing, and I said from the beginning, I don't want to go on stage. It's not a hang up that I have. I'm telling you that I don't want to do that. I probably would, well, I don't know that I would do it with belly dancing now, but I was like, so don't train me as if the end point is that I'm going to wear a costume and get on a stage and shake my booty. That is not what I'm doing this for. And she just kept pushing that. And I was like, what?
Not listening. I love that you did that, though. That's wonderful.
Oh,
it
was
wonderful.
Amazing.
Another time I'd love to hear more about that.
Oh, well, you'll come on again.
You
need to be our fitness guru for the network and for neurodivergent, especially women.
I would love to do that. And I've got to resuscitate the podcast that I have on the network, because
tell everybody about that too.
Yes. Okay. So here I'm going all over the place. So just to say, if you want to contact me regarding fitness coaching, my personal Instagram is the best way to go, which is Aline.Duriaud. And
how do you spell it?
So it's A-L for Lima, I-N for November, E for Echo, period, full stop, D for Delta, U-R-I, A-U for umbrella, D for Delta, and that's Aline, period, Duriaud. And that's for coaching. And just one thing to say about that is I don't do, hey, and again, there's no right or wrong. The way that I personally work, I don't do like, oh, here's a meal plan, here's a training plan, because everyone's very different. So everyone's got different stuff, different ways of working. So that's that. And then, yes, the podcast. So it's called, I'm going to change the title. I think it's called Flex and Flow with Aline. And I started it because I wanted to do something in the context of fitness and mental health. And I've had actually some incredible conversations. I had a friend of mine come on who's a recovering addict, and she became a personal trainer, and she's talked about her journey there. I've had an interview with an incredible guy called Ron Williams, who's a natural bodybuilder, and he's just incredible story and a lot of hope. So I'm gonna resuscitate that.
Good.
I wanted to do it. For me, it's that the podcast was for me to hear other people.
Yes.
other people.
That's what I tell people all the time. Look, I figured out what a neurodivergent thing to do. I certainly did not build the network or anything to become famous or whatever. It's mental health, for God's sake. Hello. Yeah. You're not going to make a ton of money usually, and you're not going to get famous in that genre, right? Unless you're already famous. That wasn't what it was about. I didn't want attention. What I wanted to do was create a container where I could go ask all these brilliant people out there that had all this knowledge to come sit with me so that I could pick their brains for an hour.
You've done that wonderfully. You've done that wonderfully. I've listened to Squash over the years.
Many shows.
Listen, do you want to, I'll finish on this. What's really funny, I've just remembered the first time I heard it was mental health, it was with Kristin Walker. What's really funny, and this was like years before I trained to become a personal trainer, I was on my way to the gym.
That's full circle.
Hello, I was listening to her do an interview, and I was like, oh, this is very familiar. I recognize this.
Oh, right, because I did the name.
I was like, this is my family. What? It's like full circle.
Exactly. Oh, I love that so much. Oh, good. I'm excited because now I'm like, oh, we can have a whole wellness area that
I would love to do. I would be honored.
And your show can be the one that I go, hey, if you want to get help with this, go to this show.
I would be honored. I would be honored to do. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for asking me. It's just such a pleasure. And I love what you do, and I really respect it. And I'm so pleased we've had a strange synchronicity with our lives in terms of the AuDHD.
Absolutely. And at some point I will get to London and I'm going to hug you so hard. I'll start crying.
I can't wait. I would love that.
Awesome. Well, Aline, thank you so much. And I'll be following you, and we follow each other, and just stay on for a second, but I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Thanks for listening.
Find Mental Health News Radio on all major podcast platforms. To explore our full lineup of shows and hosts, visit mhnrnetwork.com or just Google Mental Health News Radio. We're all over the place. And be sure to check out our newest show, Lawn Chairs in Space, a different kind of conversation where we explore liminal, freeform discussions with voices in the neurodivergent community. You can also find us on YouTube, Insta, and TikTok at MHNR Network and Mental Health News Radio. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.